Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires, and today I took a certain license because I'm the host and producer of Bonnie's Beat, and I invited my amazing 96-year-old mother, Lillian Stein, to be the guest on Bonnie's Beat. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21, and this is what a 96-year-old looks like today. I know it's hard for you to believe, and all of my friends say, we want to be like Lil when we grow up. And if you look at the necklaces that we're both wearing, these gorgeous necklaces, my mother makes them. She's made them for her Hadassah donor for years and years and years, and I don't know how she has the eyesight or the strength to do it, but she strings beads on safety pins and makes her own designs. And now I'll let Lil Stein tell you how she came up with the idea.
Many years ago in Florida, I met a lovely woman whose name was Dorothy Paltrow. Little did I dream that I would meet her granddaughter, who became a famous actress, as we all know. And
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth, who won the Academy Award.
And Gwyneth's mother, whom you've been with,
we became
Life
friends.
Banner.
We became friends, visiting me at my home and both places. However, I should be talking to you.
Yes, you should be talking to me.
This is a new experience for me. We've gone through many experiences, but this is really one of the most exciting, I think. And Dorothy came to visit me one time at my summer place, and she's wearing a very beautiful silver necklace, and I admired it and said, I love your sterling necklace. She says, have your eyes refracted, as she goes like this and says, they're safety pins. Dorothy, would you mind taking them off? I take the necklace off, put it in my pocket, and I says, when you go home to New York, to Long Island, you won't have it. But when I learn how to make it, I will mail it to you, which is what happened. And that put me on the road to whatever.
How many hundreds of these beautiful necklaces have you sold, Mother?
To make different designs and patterns, and a little 1-inch safety pin takes a lot of know-how, but it took me a long time. But I enjoy each and every one. All the women, they'll wear a drop, they'll wear a gold necklace, and that was the latest style for years and years. No one looks at that anymore, but they all notice my safety
pins.
I have no idea why, but they are exciting to other people too. And there's many a time I'm in a restaurant or wherever I may be, and somewhere, and they just insist on buying it right off my neck. And so I am the best advertisement for myself.
But also, you had some commercial experience also, because you went into the National Liberty Museum.
Oh yes, I sold there, and that came about in a peculiar way, unusual and wonderful way. A friend of mine was wearing one in Florida, and she is with the president of
Borowski, the national,
and he's admiring her necklace, and she tells the story about me. Well, he has someone get in touch with me as manager and insists that I come and bring them there, and I did sell them. So that was really an accomplishment for a housewife, I guess I'd call myself.
But everybody has, I mean, wherever you go in your circles, people are wearing these necklaces, and they'll wear them to formal events also.
Yes.
It goes with all kinds of clothing.
Yeah, I was at Lankenau just last week, and I'm getting a card for parking. And the woman says to me, I love your necklace. And I says, I make them. Well, it so happens, I said, what color would you like? Because I knew she wanted it right away. So I have to deliver it to her, and that's how things happen, too. But when I go to Hadassah meetings or wherever I may go with my friends, they don't mind. We're all wearing, they're different patterns, but it's the same idea.
It's the same idea. They are just beautiful because the beads that you select, they look like onyx, they look like sapphire. They're really...
Even my pearls and so forth. And then I decided to make this choker.
Can you get a close-up of this, I wonder? Guys, look at this. Is this gorgeous? As a matter of fact, Mother, this matches what I'm wearing today. I may swap for the one I'm wearing. That's just beautiful. And you even...
make bracelets.
Well, I'm putting the bracelet on because this bracelet definitely goes. It's the same color blue as my outfit.
It looks like I lost it.
You just lost your bracelet.
I didn't make a sale, but I did lose it.
Anyway, there was a time when my late father would say, cottage industry has come to Wynwood, because that's where I grew up. And my mother, grab one of your your headbands, Mother.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is another. This is all it's not in my retirement. I just was never not working. I'm in Florida with a friend of mine. We're walking down the lovely in Palm Beach. What's that lovely street?
Worth Avenue.
And Worth Avenue. And in the window sits this. I have never seen
A visor
that look like that. So when you're on vacation, money is real monopoly money.
Yes. Yes.
And so I bought it for you because it was like $30. For myself, I would never have done it. However, I take it home. My friend buys one, I buy one, and the two of us are admiring each other wearing these. Well, this gave me an idea. I finally found out where they came from. And we went into business in my friend's cabana at our summer place, which led on to we sold it to the casinos. I sold it all over Palm Beach up as far as Jupiter. And I would come dressed with my real jewelry, wearing one of these, and they had never seen a gray-haired salesperson. I overwhelmed them, made them all my friends, and I had the best time. And her name is Pekin, and my name is Stein. And I gave the name of PS Advisors, AD-Advisors. That was our name.
Very clever.
Yes.
Now, what's your name for your
This is my
jewelry
name right
business?
here.
And it says?
And it says
Pin-Ups.
Pin-Ups by Lillian.
Very clever. Let me see if I can get that to stand up again. I may not be able to get it to stand up again. Up, there we go. Okay. Now, you've got 96 years of history, and you are one of the sharpest people I know, because when I turned you on to MSNBC a few years ago, you can talk about any issue, the elections, what's happening, especially with Rush Limbaugh. Oh my God, what he did to that young woman.
Yes.
And what he did to himself. Finally, he got nailed for being vicious and usurping his position, talking to 20 million listeners in the airwaves. Oh my goodness. Well, so far to date, he's lost 20 of his sponsors. 2 radio stations, one in Hawaii, one in Massachusetts, have dropped carrying his show. And the Republicans are running from him as fast as they can, even though he used to be the non-elected head of the Republican Party, according to Chris Matthews. And I believe Chris Matthews.
Well, he's a fine gentleman. But we discussed this in the car even, because that was the utmost in my mind to find out how many people.
How many sponsors?
Sponsors, because he got his comeuppance.
He got his comeuppance. I mean, he's laughing all the way to the bank, but the man is not exactly the epitome of morality. He's on his 4th wife. He was arrested for illegal procurement of drugs,
Yes.
OxyContin.
Yes.
I mean, he's a rogue figure, and every time he uses the word, and he used this every time Hillary Clinton ran for anything, for Senate, for president, he called her a feminazi. He's been using that word for the past 2 weeks, and it just makes my skin crawl when he says something like that. It's really horrendous. It's one thing to disagree with someone, but it's another thing to use the most reprehensible insults and language. Just awful. Just awful. My father always used to say, don't say hate.
No.
You only hate Nazis. That's the only thing you're allowed to hate.
We never use that word in our house, ever. No.
But I'm not
was a
fond.
no-no.
I'm not fond of Rush Limbaugh. I won't say I hate him because I don't even know him, but probably to know him is to hate him.
Well, that takes care of him.
That takes care of Rush. Now, it's 2012. You didn't have television when you were a girl. You didn't have television when you were a young adult, because I remember when we had the first television set on our
Yes, we
block.
had the first in our neighborhood. In fact, they would come, I think, from the Rocky Mountains to come in. I mean, I went through big tin cans of pretzels and ice cream like we were a store, but it was wonderful. And the thing I remember the best was the basketball games at that time.
And Ramar of the Jungle, my brother and I would watch.
Yeah,
It was
but
a series.
Sid Caesar and all of that, that was the
Right.
first, and that they were the most wonderful comedic people there ever
Milton
were.
Berle.
Well, all of that
The Milton
whole
Berle show.
Yes.
And my father always watched the Friday night fights, sponsored by Gillette. But my father did not sit and watch. He danced around the room,
participated.
throwing punches. He felt every punch. He threw every punch. And we weren't allowed to talk during a fight broadcast. But then I remember, before they had color television, I remember you and Daddy bought, it was like red, yellow, and blue, a plastic screen, and you put it on your television set. It magnetic, it clung to it. And that was supposed to look like color television. Yes.
Plastic.
It was a plastic screen, and it had 3 different colors. It was not very successful as color television.
Well, can we go way, way back in time during the? I didn't know, but I bought my house at Brynmore Avenue, and I never knew. I don't think the President of the United States knew that day, December 7th, that night, war was going to be declared, and that I never got over that situation.
That was Pearl Harbor Day.
Yes.
December 7th.
Now my husband decides they're going to make him like a warden or something
Oh,
of the block.
He was
of
an
the block.
auxiliary policeman during World War II, my father.
For the block.
And
And
they
he
had
was guarding the mailbox.
yes, and they had him assembling instruction booklets. I don't remember what the instructions were.
We had the
for.
blackout curtains, and you heard these whistles blow,
The sirens.
the sirens. I'd had anyone that was in the neighborhood, and many a stranger would come, and we would all sit and stare at each other. Now I remember a gray-haired person. In those days, I was not aware of turning gray, and my Bonnie thought it was her grandmother. And she kept calling her grandma because she had no idea. I don't know how old you were even at the time. But I remember all these strangers sitting in my house till the all clear was sounded.
That was from 41 to 45. Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of people pass through my house.
A lot of people passed through your house. Now, my maternal grandparents, Rose and Abraham Ponick, were also remarkable people. They had, before they knew each other, they had each fled from Russia and Poland under the Tsar because it was not a nice place for Jewish people to be living. And when I was a little kid, my grandfather told me that when he was inducted into the Tsar's army, they knew that if a Jewish boy put on a uniform, the family never saw or heard from him again.
They were the front row. They were for the cannon fodder.
So he traded his uniform from the Russian army to a tailor for a suit of clothes. And what he told me is that and then he walked to the ocean, and he got on a ship, and he came to America. So, and ended up in Philadelphia, luckily for me. And my grandmother came with her parents, and this was all, they came between 1916 and 1920, and they landed in Philadelphia, and they made a wonderful life for themselves and learned to speak English, learned to read and write English. My grandfather was a very successful businessman, and my grandmother, Rose Ponick, worked beside him in our big toy store, A. Ponick and Sons, every day of her life until he died.
Well, we were in business 68 years, so people did know us. And in fact, my father had a write-up in the Evening Bulletin at one time with his picture, and they called him Mr. Santa Claus. And when people would come in with their children or grandchildren, they'd say, "Thank Mr. Ponick," so they thought he was giving them all their gifts. Little did they know the register was ringing.
It was a huge toy store at 10th and Chestnut Street. And they were a retail store, but also a wholesale store. But that was between the months of September and December. We never saw the men in our family because
That's
they were
true.
working. But and I always thought, in those days, I thought any father that was home on weekends must be lazy. I mean, our men were never around on weekends in the fall. The store was open 7 days and 7
Well, there
nights
was a
week.
union in those days, and they stayed until the last customer was on the street would come in.
That's right.
And that's why, because there were, in those days at Christmas and New Year's, there were people that sold on corners. They sold all kinds of stuff. And
But Ponix was a very, very big and very well-known wholesale distributor of toys, toys from Mattel and Hasbro, and you name the manufacturer, and Ponix Toys was carrying them and selling them to like the Strawbridges, the Wanamaker,
Yeah, we sold department
the Kitty
stores.
Cities, all the big and small, sold them to everybody. And when you were a teenager, you were like the bookkeeper, right?
My last year of high school, I would take, after school, I would take the trolley, 52nd, I would take the trolley to 52nd Street, take the L, and I was the bookkeeper that last year. And I did grow up too fast because once you're in a different world, and they just seem too young to me, the rest of the friends.
High school?
High school. When I went to my 25th reunion, I said, look at all these old people. I don't know what happened in the intervening years. That I don't know.
Anyway, Grandma Ponix, in those days, when she died in 1965, the age of 86, that was considered really old.
Yes.
Really old, because my grandfather died at the age of 77. My father died at the age of 77 also. But the women seem to have longevity in our family.
Well, I hope so. Anyway, an interesting thing about my parents, they were the first ones to fly. And the first ones to go back, my mother, someone says, why don't you go to Europe? Well, they decided to go. They were going for the toy show in Germany, the toy show there. And my mother always said, that's where I was born. Why should I go back there? But in the meantime, that's what they did. And because of my parents flying, which was their first trip here, they stopped at Jacksonville at their brother's, and they went to Miami. And from then on, I had a perpetually packed suitcase, and I never stopped traveling. And that's how I saw the world till we were lucky enough that we started import, and then I went to the Orient and various places.
And missed the plane from California to Japan one year. That was an interesting story.
Oh, the men were there, and we were very busy. We decided we were going to go into the airport and we're going to have a bite to eat. Our coats and everything, this is dead of winter, and our coats and our handbags, everything was in the plane, and the plane took off without us. What do we do? So I learned from my husband that you go to the top. And I don't know, maybe the president of the airline. I don't know who I spoke to. And I insisted, there were 4 women, and I insisted, all their husbands were buyers, owned their own businesses, and they were all there on the buying trip. And I insisted on 4 rooms and dinners and everything else, and the wake-up call, and it was terrible. And when we got to the Orient, we finally were able to get our coats and things, and we thought we'd be welcomed by our husbands as they went like this, because they couldn't believe that we missed the plane.
They were on the plane.
They're in Japan already.
Yeah.
They're there,
Oh,
yes.
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, one of my fondest memories is every summertime, for a couple weeks before camp and a couple weeks after camp, I would go and stay at Grandma and Grandpa Ponix's house that was on the beach block in Ventnor. But the women of the family would stay there for the whole summer, and the men would come in from work on Friday and leave again on Monday morning. Now, that house had so many bedrooms. There were 4 floors, and there were so many. It was your brother, Uncle Leon, and his family had 1 floor. Uncle Sam had a floor. You had a floor with Grandma and Grandpa Ponix. And there was a big outdoor porch as well as an indoor porch.
Yes.
And you could see the ocean, you could see the boardwalk.
Well, we were the beach block, that's why.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't aware, I was too young to know when they bought that house. Do you remember when they bought it, or what motivated them to buy that big house?
No, I know. I cannot remember that. But we, so-called the younger generation, we were only there in the summer. My mother and father would go there during the winter every weekend. My father, in later years, decided he was going to surprise my mother, and he bought her an anniversary present. You didn't have to take a test in those days. At least my father didn't.
And to get a driver's license.
And we were dumb enough to let him drive her down there, and they survived the trip. I don't know how many hours it would take them to go, because when I was a kid, my brothers, myself, I can remember very well my father in this big Ford that everybody had a Ford, and we would go to Wildwood in those days. And on the way home, we didn't have air conditioning. Your windows are open, and we had crates, those wooden crates that you buy at the farmer's stand, of apples and peaches and whatever, and the fruit flies were flying around with us and the regular fly. But we had a wonderful time, and that I remember very well.
I remember collecting seashells and with a crayon making designs on them, and then I put them on the different levels of steps leading up to Grandmom's porch, and I would sell them for a penny or 2 cents, and people would actually buy them coming home from the beach. They felt sorry for me, I guess, you know. So much effort went into that.
Well, who has that lemonade stand and started?
Oh, Alex's lemonade stand.
I don't think you were up to that.
That's different. That's an amazing, amazing charity. Well, just recently, we had a family reunion with a cousin that we hadn't seen in many years, and it turns out that her son, Robert Zamsky, and his wife, Sharon, they live right in Radnor. So they can actually see this show when it comes on,
nice, yes.
on Monday night. And we had a wonderful reunion. We had a bar mitzvah brunch at Robert and Sharon's home, and my brother, Bruce, and his significant other, Diane, were there. My mother and I were there, and my cousin Toby Ponick, used to be Zamsky, went back to her maiden name.
That's
Ponick.
Robert's mother.
Robert's mother. Robert's sister Barbie was there. I mean, a whole host of relatives.
Yeah, they flew in from Florida.
And the bar mitzvah, my cousin Ronnie, he was Toby's sister. Ronnie Marcus was there with her husband Buzzy, and the bar mitzvah boys, brother and sister, were there. It was a whole family reunion, and it was really delightful. And we had a picture taken of 3 generations of the Ponick women, as I call them, you know. But not too many people have a 96-year-old to adorn any of their photos, you know?
How about the photos that I brought in of other? I have brought photos of
my mother spent 2 days going through her photo drawers.
Literally, I did not leave the house.
And she put together, and she brought a whole tote bag of photographs of her grandparents, her parents, every family event.
And my grandparents, who I really never knew, I'm glad I have a picture of them. My grandfather spoke 7 languages, a very handsome man, and a picture of his mother. Well, for this bar mitzvah boy, it would be like the 7th generation. Right. I lost track of how many generations. Yes. And they all took pictures of that to give them. And I thought that was
But what they actually did, my mother's not computer literate. She's very smart in a lot of areas, but she has no clue what a computer does or how you work it. But my cousins took those old photos and scanned them into their computer so they could share them. And then when I sent the photos I had taken to my cousin Ronnie by email, she took some photos out of her wedding album and scanned them and sent them to us so my mother could see her brother Sam and her late brother Sam, her late sister Evelyn, who were Ronnie's parents. So that was a treat also. Computers are amazing things, Mother.
I know, but when they take a cell phone and they're taking pictures, I mean, the whole thing.
Let's talk about cell phones.
The whole thing confuses me.
All my mother's friends are 15 to 20 years younger than she is because nobody her age can keep up with her. This woman shops and sews, she sells, she does everything.
And I'm the one that is the scorekeeper for Canasta, for 2 buildings.
And she's a designated driver for her friends for all the Hadassah luncheon meetings. But she doesn't know from cell phones, except one of her younger friends demanded that she have a cell phone in case of emergency. So dutiful daughter Bonnie, I went to the AT&T store where I have bought my cell phones for years, and I bought one for my mother, and I set up an account, and my husband Sammy, who has 2 degrees in computer sciences, he tried hundreds of times to teach her how to answer the phone, how to make calls. She keeps it plugged in all the time. She's never been able to answer a call. She's never been able to sell a call. I just pay for that phone every month, and she won't give it up. It's like a security blanket. But
It looks nice in the kitchen.
yes, it looks nice in the kitchen. It's
Once in a while, I remember to take it with me in the car, which was the only thing that you worry if I could use that in
Right.
an emergency.
right, but she doesn't know how to make.
Yes,
doesn't
I
know-
know. I know. I have the book with me, and papers on the back. I tell her the instructions in a little zipper bag how to make the call. But I never give it out to anybody because no one's going to call me on that
No,
thing.
no.
Because I wouldn't be with it constantly,
And not
glued
only
to my
that-
ear.
And not only that, you wouldn't know how to answer it. So it's
No, I don't think so.
I keep telling her, just press the green button. No, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. Anyway, what's the biggest change you've seen in your lifetime? If you can pick out one thing,
In what area?
any area, politics, arts and culture, automobiles, whatever.
Oh, you're giving me a question out of left field. I mean,
Well, there was no script, Mother. We're just having
I
a
know.
conversation.
I know. Well, I was always very fashion conscious, and I have to laugh at how we are led. We're just like you lead the animals into the barn at night, and if they sold enough dresses that were knee length, they now make them up to here. When they're done with this, they'll go back to the mid calf, and that's how you have to throw out all your clothes.
No, that's how you have to. My mother, when I was a teenager, she would measure. It had to be
Oh,
a
yes.
certain number of
Yeah.
inches. I mean, she
From
was
the floor.
so.
From the floor.
She followed the crowd. I never followed the crowd. Luckily, I remember when she would say to me, "When are you going to have some feminine wiles and use makeup like Cousin Ronnie?" And I would say, "Never." I mean, I was my own person, luckily. I don't know how I had the strength to resist this amazing vital force over here, but there were times when I did, and I'm glad that I did. But the fashion thing, but that's because she could sew and make her own dresses. She made all the curtains in her house,
And upholstered,
in my
but
house.
this is all self-taught. I cannot follow rules in many ways, let's say. And if I could create it and do it and figure it out, then, and if it interested me.
And knitting, she's a whiz at knitting. She also made the most gorgeous knit caps with brims, most beautiful hats.
There were fedora-style
and
hats.
sold tons
That was
of
also
those.
for Hadassah, and I even sold them. What's the farrier's name that I always went to in Ardmore?
Galen.
I sold them to Galen.
That's right. Galen
Yes.
carried them.
Yes.
Her hats were amazing.
When I was in there one day, I'm wearing it, and I had so many, one for every sweater or whatever, and they started a lot of conversation behind me, and I had no idea what, and I was getting a little self-conscious till they came over, and they said, "Can I ask you, where did you get that hat?" And before I knew it, I said, I have an inner salesmanship, I think. And I said, you can give one of these all year first. You can afford to do that. And that's how it started.
So they bought them from you
Yes.
and gave them to people.
Yes.
They are stunning hats. And we see them, all my friends have them.
They wear
We see
forever.
them. Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
You can push
And
them in your sleeve and shape them
Any
up.
color, any combination, she would find the most exotic wools to
I would
to
try
knit.
to match their furs, the silver fox and the minx and so forth. Yes, yes.
But then any color you want in any color combination, and my mother can carry a color for years in her head. If she wants to match, a fabric for a chair to go with a pillow or vice versa, wherever she is, she'll say,
I don't need to take a swatch. Yes.
That's it. And she brings it home, and it's absolutely perfect. And it's been a delight having my mother, Lillian Stein, on Bonnie's Beat. And we'll see you next time.